COVID tell us? You have an idea, right? And you firmly believe in it, which is a good thing. But what if you're wrong? Where does the shoe actually pinch? And then where does opportunity lie as a result of that understanding?
Hello and welcome to the ASSEK Member Spotlight. My name is Macharia. I'm the ASSEK Communications Officer. Today on this edition, we feature Maureen Macharia, founder of Spindle Designs, as she explains more on how the design and innovation company is playing a role in upscaling startups through product design development and business strategy, among other services. Stay tuned.
I am Maureen Macharia. I am the CEO and founder of Spindle Design. Spindle is a design and innovation lab that combines a couple of different skills in order to bring products and businesses to the African market and solve our own problems using our own capacity and skill sets.
Nice. So how long have you been in existence for?
We've been around for 4 years. It feels like it's been a lot more than 4 years, to be honest. Some years feel longer than others, but we've been around for 4 years. This is actually 2021 is our 6th year.
5th or 6th?
6th, yeah.
So let me ask, how was it formed? What made you actually decide, I'm going to form Spindle Designs? What was the idea behind it?
So there's a long answer to that question and a short answer to that question. The long and short of it is I was working in a company as a designer, and design was no longer the focus of the organization. And just a bit of context in terms of what design does. We practice human-centered design, and we leverage it as a means for driving innovation. So before you roll out a product or a business, our ethos is understand the people, understand the market, make sure that you have a strong business commercial model, and then package all of that as a product and push it out to the market. So the organization I was working with at the time didn't want to focus on design anymore. So I looked around the ecosystem for other design companies I could go to, and I didn't find any. And I went to folks and I'm like, guys, we need to be using our skill sets as Africans, as Kenyans, as designers, as innovators, as developers. I'm also a techie to solve problems in healthcare, agriculture, whatever the sectors. But most folks just looked at me like, you're a weirdo. So, I mean, organization I was with didn't have a focus anymore. So I opted to just start something myself, and we've just grown organically since then.
Wow. So how many are you? I'm curious to know,
We are 5 full-time and a pool of about 3 consultants. So about 8.
Okay. So, and then kindly give us a brief description of the services you offer.
Okay, so Spindle does a couple of things, yeah. We combine skill sets in human-centered design or design, innovation consultancy, digital development, and strategy advisory in order to solve the different challenges that we're tasked with. So what that essentially means is, for example, we have skill sets as product designers, and these are people or human-centered designers or UX designers, UI designers, and these are people who are tasked with understanding people, what their problems are, what the context is that surrounds that particular problem, where does the shoe actually pinch, and then where does opportunity lie as a result of that understanding. And then we move into the space of digital development. These are developers, product managers, guys that code, programmers, They are the ones that help bring a lot of, especially the digital solutions to life. And then as a backdrop to that, obviously we need to make sure that solutions, whether they're existing or they're new, we are looking at, is this actually feasible? Is it commercially viable? Is there a reason for it to exist from a business perspective? And coming up with some of those ideas, prototyping them, and then putting them out into the market.
Wow. And then there's the other one you had mentioned.
So that's strategy advisory, which we also call business design. I think the market largely knows it as strategy advisory. We as designers call it business design. So it's the marriage of, for example, an MBA and design practice.
Okay, interesting. So please take us through the process of conceptualizing and designing and creating this ingredient. It's just, if you could just give it to us in brief. Okay, it's probably more complex.
I think what would anchor this best is to use an example of work that we've done that has actually used all these skill sets. Okay, a large part of these skill sets. So we had a client that was based out of Kenya, and they wanted to come into the African market and develop a health financing product, digital health financing product for low-income communities. So they came to us and they're like, we don't understand what the needs are of low-income communities. Do they have mobile phones? Are they going to be able to afford such a solution? What are their healthcare needs? What are their financing needs? So we deployed a team to go out into the market and do human-centered design research and understand what their needs are there. So that's the first part of the process. We go from ideation, so coming up with ideas of what the solution actually is, beginning to test and prototype them in various forms, whether it's a digital product or it's a service. We once did this really cool prototype of someone who wanted to put up a salon, a shop for beauty products, and so we made something out of cardboard. That's an example of prototyping what the shop would look like, just to see what are people buying, what do they like, what don't they like. And then once that is done at the concept creation and prototyping phase, then we go out into testing. We test that and make sure that we have data around what is or is not working. When we have a green light, we throw that to the development team. So that's kind of like the next phase, which is more around implementation, building the actual solution. This is when our techies come in. So UX designers to create the actual mock-ups if it's something that's on web or mobile, and then a developer team to actually build the solution. Then it's handed over to a project manager. If we are doing the implementation, sometimes we don't. Then after that, sometimes the client comes back and says to us, help us understand how the solution is doing in the market. If it's working, we would want to continue collecting the right data. If it's not, we want to know why it is or it's not working. So then we do like M&E at the very end of the solution. So those are kind of like the 4 phases, from defining what the challenge is, defining what the problem is, defining what the solution is. The 4th is really implementing it, and the 3rd is implementing it, and the 4th is evaluation.
Okay, so that's interesting. So if something, maybe for instance, design is maybe not picking up in the market, do you go back then and alter it?
Yes, that's part of the process. So, for example, we are currently working with a startup that has a digital product, and they're just not seeing traction in the market. So we're going to sit down with them and understand, okay, from your perspective and the data that you have, why do you think it is or is not doing well? Collect that and then go out into the field and validate or invalidate certain hypotheses. And then actually make the tweaks. If it's something visual, we make the tweaks there. If it's a business model recommendation, we make the recommendations. Where we're able to work with slightly larger startups, then we kind of like hold their hand through that process of, okay, it's not just like a document that you take away. We help you actually implement what some of those recommendations are.
So you also work. So basically, even with redesigning this platform, most of your clients, who are they mainly? The ones who are coming for design, or the ones who are coming for design in simplified language?
I hope I'm not complicating this, but so we work with companies across the spectrum. We've built our company working with startups. Just 2-3 person teams that are like, hey, I have an idea, I don't know what to do with it, can you help me figure out whether there's a there, or like we just go and do something else with our lives, or we move to some. So we've worked with early stage startups, actually startups across the spectrum, from early stage to kind of like your scale-ups, guys that are moving across borders. So think of guys like OK Hi, at the very beginning, many years ago, Coco Networks, very many years ago. And then you have kind of like your more established companies or corporates, guys like Safaricom, who are like, yeah, we want to roll out a new product, come help us. Or Digifarm, which is a digital platform for farmers to get all-inclusive help. And that's like a product that Safaricom owns. And then you have your international organizations, whether they are foundations or NGOs, not-for-profits. Some of them are actually supporting a number of startups, right? Like, we want to help these guys grow, and we recognize that you have the skill set to help them understand the market, their business, their product, and improve. So there are those models, and then there's the one-on-one partnerships. So those are our clients.
Okay. And what are your different, when you're working on a project, are there different packages? Is there a rate card for each service? Is there a retainer that you actually work with? Yeah.
In the beginning, we did have them. We had retainers and package. We still have packages actually still for startups, like an innovation bootcamp, which is a 2-day thing, and we help you really think through how you can innovate your product. We have longer sprints around the same, and they're a bit more in depth for the larger companies, where you have them bringing in 15, 20 bigger teams than what you would have in startups. That's one package, the innovation bootcamps. We have what we call the UX masterclass, and we traditionally I've done this in the past with Google, in partnership with Google, just to get the community sensitized on innovation and how to actually go through that process and what tools you need. And then there's, under strategy, there's business development services. So you're running a company, but your books are not in order, your operations are not in order, your finances are not in order. So we have, I think, a package for that, where we help guys with that every single month.
How much on a rough estimate, like 2,500 USD? Just a rough blanket cost.
The startup packages are usually less than $1,000. Okay. So it's about 50 Gs, and that covers about two days. Okay. Then one of the other packages, we are repricing it now, so we don't have a price for it. For the bigger companies, because they tend to want to put so much in a single basket, we have to evaluate engagement by engagement. So one wants design, one doesn't want design. They just want a go-to-market strategy. That's it. Give me a go-to-market strategy for this product. And that's costed differently depending on the different variables that come to play with that. So for entrepreneurs and supporting entrepreneurs, those packages they're all under 1,000.
Oh, nice. Okay. And then, so as an industry leader, what are some of the common challenges people face in creating product design?
Well, I think you could break that down even further. So there's the national level, and then there's an ecosystem level, and then even within the ecosystem, we can break that down even further across the different stages of maturity of organizations, startups to corporates to whatever. I mean, at a national level, I think SMEs face a number of challenges. There's, regulatory challenges, things like taxes, enforceability of different contracts and breaches of different contracts. Yeah. That really affects a small business's ability to grow. Yeah. Collection and how you actually follow up on like invoices and making sure that your money is coming through the door. So there are those challenges at a national level, which honestly improved policy, having an enabling environment for SMEs so they can actually thrive. This is the tax burden on SMEs in Kenya is incredibly high. Yeah. It becomes very difficult to thrive, and then it becomes a vicious cycle of everyone trying to survive in one way or another. And then within the individual businesses, I think one of the challenges across the board is mindset. A lot of folks just wake up, and this is one of the reasons that Spindle was formed, right? Like, we saw this challenge of folks in the ecosystem, which I myself did when I was a developer. I realized I have the ability to dream up an idea or a product, and then the skills to bring it to life. Like, I could code, right? So I started just building stuff. And then if you ask me where those solutions are, a couple of months down the line, they don't exist. Like, they just died because they weren't solving a real problem. They weren't solving a real need. So that we tend to see a lot of the same type of challenge, especially with leadership of you have an idea, right? And you firmly believe in it, which is a good thing. But what if you're wrong? And you are not taking the steps to find out whether you're on the right track or not.
So you're saying, if I'm getting you correct, you're saying that there needs to be like listening more to the market needs.
Definitely.
Definitely.
I mean, if COVID-19 has taught us anything, it's that organizations are very susceptible. They are open to being disrupted in a number of different ways. Spaces now are not as packed as they were before. Businesses have had to transition from more manual-based processes to digital. They've had to rethink how they do their service delivery across the value chain. And some of these things we didn't need COVID to tell us, which is
it was like basically it was like jump starting.
Exactly.
It jump started the engine. And it was like your engine has, and then that's when we were like, oh my god,
we should have done
this. But then sometimes COVID was a blessing in disguise.
I agree.
Yeah, because it taught us to think outside the box.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So the number of people that had to go back to the drawing board and ask themselves, is this actually a problem? And are we solving the right one? Increased exponentially. And we've actually seen that across our portfolio of work. And then there's the top-down approach where leadership decides what the direction is for a product or a business without still talking to the market. And we do this a lot still with corporates in Kenya. And even industries. For example, if you think about how insurance is structured, insurance is it's just ripe for disruption.
Yeah.
With 2 to 3% adoption of insurance across the country, those rates are just like very, very low. And there's so much we can do to make sure that more people have coverage.
Yeah.
Whether that's health, there's life,
car,
all of these things. We could find more innovative ways to build products and services and include more people.
Yeah.
So there's that top-down approach. We're used to doing things this way. We
won't listen.
Unless
something like COVID times 2.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
The most renewed virus comes in. It's like, no, I won't teach you guys a lesson.
Yeah.
So
and then for SMEs, definitely there's constraint in terms of capital and the resources that they have. I've been in startups all my life. Most of my life. Having started a couple, this is my 4th company, worked with a bunch of startups across the ecosystem. And you can see that struggle of, we know we need to improve, but we just don't have the resources. So being able to raise the funds and then being able to attract the right, not just capital, but also talent in order to help them grow and help them get to the next level. It's definitely, and we still face this as Spindle. It's you're trading off one thing for another. Do you employ the right person, or do you ensure that your cash flows are positive in order for you to live another day, in order for you to... So I think SMEs also struggle with that, and entrepreneurs still struggle with that quite a bit.
When it comes to funding, what advice would you give upcoming product designers on prototypes so that their prototypes can attract funding, or they can attract partnerships with people like Southcom? Because I hear a lot of young people saying, I have this innovation, but then I'm not sure. And most of the times you see that it will be aired on news so that it can get someone's attention. And it's not that. What advice would you give them?
Product design does not a product make. And what I mean by that is, when you look at guys like Airbnb, their founders are designers and they've done an amazing job. And one of the reasons we love Airbnb and the experience on it is because they pay attention to the needs and the experience on the product, right? It's not just, yes, you need to listen to the market, but then you also need to know how to translate those needs into an actual solution. And if you are specifically for a product designer, I think that is a gap that we still have in our market and we need to continue to grow into. And then the other aspect of which is understanding the business side of things. I remember when I worked with a corporate for the first time, I came, we had gone, they sent us to go and do research. We came back, we're like, yeah, the users have said this, the market has said this. We need to change A, B, C, and D because that's what they want. And we were just laughed out of the room. And they were right to have done, okay, they weren't right in how they did it, but they were right in the sense that design isn't the only, it's for us, it's a part of the innovation process. What we do is to drive innovation using human-centered design. So it's a part of the entire process. So you need to be able to understand, for example, business and how business metrics tie back to product metrics, which tie back to how you, and that has an implication on how you actually present yourself and what you've learned and all of that stuff. So it's not just this is what people want. Can we tie that to like specific outcomes and the implication on business, and this is what how it will affect our bottom line, and then come to the table with that understanding. That marriage of design and business, it's my favorite thing. So to be able to pull data from a couple of different sources, which is why our team doesn't have just designers. We have designers, we have strategists and economists, just to make sure that they're actually crunching the numbers. We have guys that are really amazing at finance, and then we're adding data science capabilities. And all of these together, to me, it's just data. Like all of this is data. It's to be able to close gaps in the innovation process and allow leaders to make informed decisions about which direction to or not to go. So I think product designers need to be aware of that process at an organizational level. It's fine to know where you fit in, and if you just want to go deep in design, kudos to you. But I think to be able to play at a different level, it means knowing where an organization and its leadership is, and then how to feed into that process.
And then I'd like to ask, just come to me, and do you, when you're doing the whole research about the product, do you sometimes look at competitor activities, people who are not necessarily doing it in Kenya, but outside the country, in the globe? Maybe they have a similar product, but then you want to look at, hey, if we put this tweak on our product, it would give it the edge. Yes, the edge it needs, because
I think we do. For whether it's a competitive analysis that our business actually wants, they're like, okay, we think we're amazing, tell us why we're not. That means looking at whatever exists in the market. But then there's also and the market is broad, not just local, to your point, it's also international. And one of the reasons I personally love that is because it's also a source of inspiration. Like we look at how financial services and financial products are scaling across India. That's just billion. The population is so large, yet they're able to come up with these really interesting financial services for a largely middle to low income population. Being able to see that and say, okay, compare this with that, and then if we're able to get a sense of this or a certain feature or how it works. But the thing that intrigues me the most about those products is the value that they provide, right? Because if you're able to get to that, that's a leverage point for how you tweak your product. It's not just take this feature and put it there. Because one of the things that the innovation ecosystem in Kenya, and I would dare say in Africa, has been pushing back against for the longest time is this sense of copy-pasting of solutions. We've been saying for the longest time, you can't just take something from our Western world or wherever and come and bring it here. One of the reasons we exist is to support folks that don't want to do that. And if you are simply coming to copy-paste, we're like, guys, this ecosystem is so, like, there's one famous transport application who we worked with way back, and they were just like, just tell us how the thing exactly, so that we can copy what we've done in the US and just put it here. We're not the company to work with you, I'm sorry. I mean, you try and find talent where you have it. The one thing that I personally don't think works for the continent is saying, okay, X platform has worked amazingly in whatever Western world, let's just bring it to Africa and it'll work in the same way. That historically It's just
work.
It's also just bad manners.
Because not even that, it's just the reception will not be the same. The needs are not the same.
The needs are not the same. The context is not the same. I mean, the affordability of products is not the same. The social economic classes are not the same. The mobility across those classes. There's so many. I mean, we could just like write a list of differences from here to Timbuktu. Yeah.
Okay. And so, who are your funding partners?
Where do we get our funding? Mama, shout out to you. No, we are not externally funded.
Oh.
We are a fully bootstrapped company. We had thought of raising capital last year. So we have an innovation lab, and in our innovation lab, we work with different startups to get them from stage 1 to 2 to 3 across these different services that we've been talking about. And that's one side of it, which is externally facing. The other side of it is we tinker with our own ideas, because we've done work in financial services, in health, in education, in the gig economy. Sometimes we look at that portfolio and we're like, guys, we know how to solve this problem and we don't see it being solved. What can we do as a team? So we pulled together a small team of like our own like startup within the startup and try and solve that problem. So one of them is SME financing. So for a while now, we've been building an SME financing platform just to ensure that businesses locally are able to get access to different alternative sources of capital. Invoice discounting, reverse factoring, all of that is built onto the platform.
Oh, so you're a middleman, if we can say that.
For the platform, kinda. We do have an MFI that we're partnering with.
Oh, so that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, so we're providing the technology and they are
providing the
financing. Yeah.
Okay. Financing. The financing, sorry. So as a member of ASSEK, what opportunities have you been able to benefit from? Seeing that you've been only 2 months old.
Yes. I think the 2-month-old has made this a bit more of a fair question than in 2 months I think the value so far has been interacting with 1 or 2 people. By chance or by serendipity, some of the folks we've connected with are people I've known for a long time, people like Bitanguni, etc. But I think the value that we hope to derive is in, if you think about what ASSEK does, its mandate, correct me if I'm wrong, is to help grow its individual members.
Sure.
In my opinion, that is done. One way to do it is through networks and collaborations.
Yeah.
And that's meaning saying, okay, I see company A and I see company B. Can you guys just have a cup of tea? I think you do interesting things. Yeah. I think that's something that we hope comes through ASSEK. We had an interesting, education or knowledge sharing experiences. One was with ZD or something.
ZD platform.
Yes.
Employee management and product management.
Yes. Yeah. So I think as those continue, there'll be interesting things to, not just for us, but also for our team to plug into and learn what's happening, even as we look forward to connecting with more people in the ecosystem and supporting them, even supporting hubs for what they do and their suite of startups or other startup enablers like ourselves.
So, and as a member, what opportunities apart from just more collaborations would you like to see?
I mean,
in this year 2021, it's a new slate.
Is it though?
I am hoping.
Okay.
I'm hoping we can. Yeah.
Where there is food, there is me. So I think opportunities for people to connect as individuals, opportunities for businesses to connect. Opportunities for the ecosystem to come together and share knowledge, and then share knowledge within and then share knowledge without. I think it's a very interesting space that ASSEK sits in and its members sit in terms of being able to galvanize and then share. And that just continues to grow. I mean, think about the work that AFRI Labs is doing. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy, amazing stuff. And I can definitely see ASSEK in its own similar trajectory for its own mandate.
Oh, I think especially seeing the way 1 year old.
Yeah. But if where there is food, I will come.
Yeah. So do you think Africa is overlooked in terms of like creating designs? Do you think that our designs like the ASSEK is very low? And do you think we can change this narrative? We're in a position to change it and be like, no, we actually can offer a solution to a global problem. As you said, because it's not just local. We should be aiming because we have the capacity to design solutions that can help the global space.
I definitely feel like this idea that Africa does not have the right talent, if we can just stop that narrative, 2021 will have been an amazing year. And that is actually like a catalyst to a lot more things.
Yeah.
If you don't think you have the right capacity, the right talent locally, you tend to do the same things that we've been seeing companies big and small do, which is go to non-local companies. But we want to continue to build our ecosystem, build our capacity. And I think it's there. I know it's there. I do think Africa is overlooked because of some of these narratives that we have built around talent and its lack thereof. Then there's the challenges of the enabling environments around businesses and the ease of doing business. And then, there's politics and how politics affects us every couple of years. It feels like it's supposed to be 5 years, but it actually feels like 2 years, and then we start politics and all of that stuff. That definitely has an impact in terms of leading to an economic up or downturn. So with all of even if you put all of those things aside, I think we have the capacity, we have the knowledge, we have the skill sets, we have the organizations, we have the bodies, we have the networks in order to come together and solve a lot of our problems. It still baffles me that we're on the African continent, but we need to keep calling external people to come solve problems here. But the way that they solve those problems is by coming to you and asking you what you think. So why not just get you directly and give you the opportunity to do that work in order to drive innovation in Africa, which is why we exist. We're just like, you know what? We stand for and want to continue standing for building the ecosystem of innovators, of designers, of SMEs, of entrepreneurs, of folks that are willing to tackle these big problems and think about it from a different perspective. If I think of how other developed nations are able to solve their problems, it's the exact thing that we don't do. We just like, we sit in this room, we come up with stuff, and then we throw it out. They don't do that. Facebook, Airbnb, LinkedIn. I mean, think of all the big tech companies, Twitter. When we look at the origins of these companies, Stripe, Squarespace, they start by first understanding what's out there and then bringing it internally and then going back and continuing to iterate.
And shaping it according to the market.
Yeah. So I think those are just small things that keep us I don't want to say a step behind, but it means that we are in one way or another shooting ourselves in the foot. Yeah. But can Africa innovate for itself? Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
Because we've seen a lot of innovations coming up.
Look at Trigger Foods.
Yeah.
Trigger Foods is, okay, folks might have a broader conversation about Trigger and how it's grown, but it's a local solution, right? And folks and it's helping the local ecosystem of farmers, smallholder farmers. Stuff like that is just impressive to see. We've seen companies come to IPO. Just the other day, we saw an IPO of Homeboys. Yeah, it's been a while, but they're there. So.
Okay. So Masawa, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me, Maureen. It was a pleasure. Want to be featured on the Members Spotlight? Reach out to us via communications@assek.ke and let us tell your story.